In this video, I discuss the average 401k account balance of a 65-year-old in this country. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
There are a lot of financial questions going into retirement, but one of the most common is, how do I compare to others in terms of my 401k balance? This video will cover off the answer to that question. Stick around to the end because I'm also going to disclose the number of 401k millionaires here in the US, and I will do this both by percentage of 401k balances out there and also by an absolute number. All right, let's get into it. When I post averages here on Holy Schmidt, I get a lot of positive comments from people. For example, one of my more recent videos is the average debt balance of a 65-year-old. That video had hundreds of comments, overwhelmingly positive, but there were a few that asked, what's the point? It's a fair comment for those that aren't focused in on the question. So let's talk about the benefits and limitations of what you're going to see here on this video. First, the benefits. I've never been a big believer that ignoring information that's available is a good idea if it can somehow help you or at least not hurt you. More information is almost always better than less information, particularly when you're thinking about your own retirement. It's the discussion that the information facilitates, not where you personally sit in the continuum of how much you have in your 401k versus others. Knowing what the averages are allows you to ask better questions and understand what's going on in the world around you. But there are also limitations, and let's discuss what those are. The first is where you live and how you live. If you live in a low-cost small town outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, your cost of living is going to be a lot less than if you're living in New York City. The average 401k balance also doesn't contemplate other things like other assets you might own. Your home, rental real estate, a securities account where you have other investments, a pension. This video also doesn't discuss whether or not your partner has a 401k. And last but not least, it doesn't discuss your debt balance. If you have $1 million of assets, but you have $2 million of debt, you are in an insolvent position. And the last point is that 32% of the workforce has contributed to a 401k, yet 79% of the workforce has access to a 401k. This means that less than half the people who could be contributing to their 401k actually do. Before we begin, please make sure you click subscribe and notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. I post about twice a week. Let's begin by discussing some basic terms. The first is mean. Mean is the average of all of the 401k balances that were reviewed to make up the answer that you're going to see in a few minutes. There were 5 million 401k balances that Vanguard assessed. So this information comes from Vanguard. And the mean number is simply adding up the balances of all 5 million accounts and dividing that by 5 million. And another way to look at this, and more reflective, frankly, of reality for most people, is the median. It's the account value of the person right in the middle. If you have 5 million accounts that are under review, it's the value of the 2,500,000th account. The reason that the median is a much more representative number is that you can have a few very large balances at the top that skew the averages way up. And in fact, you will see that that's exactly what happened in just a minute or so. And as I mentioned before, this information comes from the Vanguard 2020 assessment of 5 million 401k accounts. The data here is representative of the much broader universe of 401ks. So what are the averages? The average 401k balance of a 65-year-old is $216,720. The median balance is $64,548. An incredible difference between the two. And the reason is, as I said before, you have a few very large balances at the top, skewing the averages way up. But the median number is more representative of the middle of the pack. And the answer to the question about 401k millionaires, 1.6% of 401ks out there have $1 million or more in them. So with a workforce of 155 million people, that's the current workforce here in the United States, and an average uptake of 401ks of 32%, 1.6% of the 32% equals 744,000 401k millionaires. So what does that mean for you? Well, it depends on what your benchmark is, of course. If you want $1 million in your 401k, you need to save early and save often. Most of you are probably pretty close to 65 and don't have anywhere near $1 million in your 401k. In fact, many of you might not even have $64,548 in your 401k. It's important to point out that if 32% of the workforce has a 401k, that means 68% of the workforce does not. My guess is those folks, the majority of them anyway, aren't independently wealthy, and based on data that I've researched for other videos, most of that group has less than $5,000 to their name. If you're above $64,548, it doesn't mean that it's time for you to take your eye off the ball and stop saving. Conversely, if you're below that number, it doesn't mean that it's time to give up and throw in the towel. Whether you're 65 or 25, every day you should be pushing to put a little bit more into your retirement account. If you like this video, please make sure you click subscribe and notifications. I post about 2 videos a week, and retirement information is changing quickly, particularly in this day and age with inflation and other factors. So make sure you click subscribe and notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. Also, check out this video on the absolute maximum payment anyone can receive from Social Security. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.